All righty. All right, I think we're going to get going. I'll just keep adding people as we go here. So Josh and Anwar, oh, Josh just left. Okay, hold on. Hopefully he'll be back in a moment. We'll get going here. There he is.
Back.
So thank you both for joining us. I'm Andrew Benioff. For those who don't know me, Andrew Benioff with the Independent Lodging Congress. I'm going to let Anwar and Josh introduce themselves in just a second. Thank you for joining us on this. We've actually been doing this, as some of you may know, on Instagram Live, but there's a limitation on that with the number of people. So we thought we'd do this on Zoom and also record it for later use, because I think Design Agency is going to record it, and so are we. We'll put it on our Indie Colorcast podcast, and Design Agency may put it on theirs, so you'll be able to access this, and maybe even Neuehouse will keep it as well for theirs. So you'll be able to see this later or pass it along to friends if you'd like. Just to remind everybody, we are doing programming 5 days a week during the downturn right now, Monday to Friday, generally at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Although next week, I think we have Lalit Marcus from CNN on at 10 a.m. because she's in Hong Kong. And then on Fridays, generally at 4:30 for cocktails with somebody or other. This week, we have Daniel Del Olmo and Walter Eisenberg, both from Sage Hospitality. So join us for that. Obviously, our schedule's out on all the social media platforms as well as on our website. So check that out and pass it along to your friends. And we'll get going here. So Anwar and Josh, I think most people know you, but just like 15, 20 seconds of backgrounds on what your firm does, just so that we can put that out there. Anwar, why don't you start?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. Nice to talk to you. Nice to see you again. So I'm one of the three partners at Design Agency. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada, but we're also located in Barcelona, Los Angeles, and soon to be DC. So we're an interior design firm, creative strategy. We do mostly hospitality work, hotels, restaurants all around the world. And I've worked very close with Josh over the past 10 years. On previous hotel projects, and now with his latest platform, Neuehouse.
Wonderful. Josh?
Great, Andrew, thank you so much. And thank you, Anwar. First of all, for anyone out there listening, this is the first time that I've ever figured out this virtual background. So I'm very excited. And what you see is a picture of Neuehouse Hollywood behind me, although I happen to be in London right now. We actually have a fourth guest on this talk, which is Montauk the Frenchie, who insists on sitting on my lap during this. So he may rear his head during the talk, and I apologize to anyone in advance who doesn't think the Frenchies aren't totally adorable dogs. I've worked with Anwar, as you mentioned, for over the past decade. First on Generator, which was a hostel platform, design-driven hostel platform, and secondly on Neuehouse, which is a collaborative creative community focused on shared workspace, private members club, and a number of different programming strategies that we've deployed both in New York and Hollywood, and soon to be, we hope, in our most recent Neuehouse that we opened, designed by Anwar and Design Agency in downtown LA in the historic and iconic Bradbury building, which we soft launched in February. The intent was to do the formal launch sort of end of March, early April. So as you can imagine, it's truly interesting and bizarre times having to shutter that property just when we were starting to take off.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it is a bizarre time, and timing is everything. But I'm confident that you guys will get going shortly after the economy starts revving back up here, hopefully in the next few months. Tell us a little bit about how, I'm just very interested in hearing about your collaboration. And I'm interested because, listen, Anwar, we had you. Josh has come a number of times and is now on our advisory board at the Indie Congress. Anwar, you came and spoke with Josh on one of our panels in New York a number of years ago. I think it might have been even like 5 or 6 years ago.
I think it was Philadelphia. I think it was Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
It
So it was
was.
like one of the first. We did it 2 years in Philly. So it might have been like the second year in Philly, which, wow. So that was a while ago. So that's great to, we're now in our 8th year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it was a while ago. And you talked about Generator then, and we actually have that on video somewhere. We should revive that one and put it back out there. It's on our YouTube channel. But how did you guys, Josh, how did you guys, or Anwar, either one, how did you get together and decide to collaborate on Generator? And was it from the beginning, or how did that work out when you started to work together?
Anwar, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, I can start and you jump in, because it was quite serendipitous and fun way that we met. We had 2 mutual friends who back in New York, again over a decade ago, who knew us separately but wanted to really introduce us. And I think it was I can't remember what hotel or what party we were at, but I know it was one evening in New York quite late, where we were introduced at a fundraiser party or something at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And we just really connected and started talking about design and vision for hospitality and travel, and really connected in a lot of different ways. And I was about 10 years into my firm, doing a lot of restaurants at that time. And we stayed in touch, and then really Josh called us up one day and was like, hey, this is happening. I've got this great idea that we had talked about before. This is really, we've got our first asset, our first location in Dublin, Ireland. And it was kind of off to the races. It seems like forever ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was, probably going on, I guess, to almost 12 years. And, I always answer this question, based on sort of who's listening, I suppose. And for those of you on this call, I think the interesting angle to this sort of meet cute story of myself and Anwar, the more important side to it is really what did it actually develop into? And the advice I would give for anyone listening in on this talk is that, we shared a like-minded passion for hospitality and innovation, and we really wanted to sort of change the world. And I don't mean that in like an altruistic or sort of pie in the sky type of thing. We were just really intrigued by doing cool things that were interesting, sort of shook up the industry. And we were young, I mean, we're now in our mid 40s, but back then we were in our sort of early to mid 30s. And it was really important to me back then, when I was just starting out to do Generator, that I found like-minded, passionate people that were going to be really fun, smart, passionate, and frankly, easy to work with. And those 4 or 5 key characteristics I found in Anwar and his partners, and also in other people that I surrounded myself with. I mean, the story of Generator is not just me and Anwar. It's, there's probably 10 other people, including my former boss and mentor at the time at Patron Capital, and some coworkers that were junior to me on my team, and collaborators, local partner collaborators throughout Europe, who were really all instrumental in coming together. And the key to the success there was that, for the most part, all of us were aligned and really super excited, first and foremost, about creating really interesting, unique, and new product. And then from that, yes, all the technical things started to happen. The design, how to actually get the product design, how to find the money and capital to buy the buildings and renovate, and how to find the operating people and the team, and the local marketing partners and all that. But it all started with, I think in any relationship, business relationship or creative relationship, if you find, before you ever talk contracts and money and all that stuff, if you find that you get along with someone and it's just really easy to spend a lot of time with them, and you're motivated by the same things, that relationship more often than not will blossom into a very long-term success. And for that, Anwar, his partners, and a couple other people in the Generator story, we just were very, very, I think, lucky but thoughtful in that approach.
Yeah, it's wonderful. There's some great points that you make. I want to throw out there to everybody that that we're open for questions. If you either want to, actually, I prefer not to raise your hand. I'd rather put it on a group chat if you can, just a chat to everybody. Feel free to put out a question on chat. I'll see it and we'll work it in. We're open for questions even right now. You don't have to wait. So what was, when you started, and we're going to get to, we'll get to Neuehouse in a moment, but for Generator, what was sort of the ethos that you were trying to create around Generator? I mean, what was your sort of thesis?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, just trying to, I'll answer the question about Generator, but I want to try to extrapolate it out for people that are listening, because I think you can take this life lesson and apply it to any type of product that you're thinking about designing, or product that you're trying to create or bootstrap. And I do think, as a total aside, and we can come back to it later, but I think what we're seeing right now with the virus is it already has, and I think it's going to increasingly unleash an incredible amount of creativity over the next 10 years, because it will be necessary for those creative moments, frankly, just to have a career. So I think first and foremost with Generator, we looked at what was just not being supplied in the marketplace in a major market, which at the time was the millennial travel market. And the word millennial didn't really truly exist back in 2007. I think maybe it just been coined, or it was starting to gain steam, but it wasn't really well defined. But what I saw in the market was literally, over 1 billion people, on the face of the earth traveling between the ages of 18 and 28, who didn't have a cool place to stay, and really weren't being inspired. At the end of the day, we all want to be inspired, whether you're staying in a hotel, or you're going to a restaurant, or you're seeing a movie, or you're reading a book, or you're going to a museum. It's about inspiring. You don't wake up in the morning, say, to your friend or your partner, your husband, your wife, your children, say, hey, let's go see something really, really boring. Like, let's go stay in a hotel that just is like completely, mediocre. Like, no one actually gets up and says that in the morning, right? So, but yet at the end of the day, a lot of businesses are created around that. There's so many businesses and brands out there, whether it's hotels, restaurants, or retail concepts, or fashion brands, that are just so mediocre. Like, honestly, I don't even know how it happens, but deep down somewhere, no one would ever admit it, but there's like a board of directors or a committee, or even an owner that just says, I just want to do the easiest, most mediocre thing possible. Like that happens more often than not in society. And I think if you start from the other end, which says, I just want to do something really, really interesting and amazing that will really surprise and delight and provoke people, then you'll come up with something more often than not very cool. And Anwar has done this time and time again, whether it's he's actually created it with his partners, or he's partnered with innovators like David Chang, the guys from Tokyo Smoke up in Toronto, and other examples. It's just coming up with something that's really interesting and provocative, that makes people happy and makes people want to be there. And with Generator, I saw this massive market. Now, now today it's obviously been it's been imitated and it's been scaled in several different platforms around the world, and I take great pride in that. But if you look at back then, I mean, literally 2006, 2007, there was really nothing there that had all this massive creativity under one roof. And so that's what sort of was the genesis of the Generator concept. And from there, it obviously grew and morphed over the years.
So Anwar, how do you take what Josh just said when he comes to you for the first time? He's like, I want to do this thing that surprises and delights 18 to 28-year-olds. How do you take that and translate it into what you did?
Yeah, I think that was really the challenge and the opportunity, right? So our thesis from a design point of view and creativity was, really looking around the world to see, what did luxury, what was happening in luxury design, boutique design. We looked at a lot of our mentors, often looked at people like Ian Schrager, the whole boutique hotel boom. Why did that have to only exist sort of in a very inaccessible way? And why did you need big budgets to kind of have that wow factor, or to create that experience? So we were looking for ways to again, kind of surprise and delight, to collaborate, to bring in local flair. We built over 14. We designed over 14 generators, and all in different countries around the world. There was the opportunity to be authentic and inspiring. We just went for it. And we figured out how to use the best of the budget that we were given. Some projects were adaptive reuse, some were conversions, some were new construction, and really there were no barriers. But we kind of knew that the whole hostel and sort of this shared accommodation platform had a really unique vibe to it and a really unique energy to it that couldn't be recreated in some hotels. There was just like this really not just youthful, because it wasn't just about the millennials. I mean, we were designing for very sophisticated people too, who whether they were flashbackers, who retirees who had decided to strap on a backpack again and go travel around the world, or people that wanted to closely engage with a community that was a little bit more open. So there was a lot of really interesting things that we could develop within Generator and that platform. And half of these projects were really hotels as well, because you would have private accommodations mixed with shared accommodations. So we really just we took the best, I think, of both worlds and merged them into this global platform. And we did it. We learned a lot from all the little independent hostel boutique ownership and design groups around the world that were working on this, because there was some incredibly designed boutique and independent hostels around the world that, again, was very targeted just to that backpacker or that millennial mindset or that youthful traveler. So we took the best of all that and the best from what everybody was doing in luxury and boutique hotels and kind of merged it together and said, hey, this can be now a place where any of these people can go to. And it's really just about, your dollar spend, where are your priorities? How much do you want to spend on a bed, and how much time are you actually spending in a bed? Comes down to it as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, I don't know, Josh and Anwar, you guys might not have been the absolute first people to do this. I don't know. I didn't follow exactly what was happening then, on a timeline basis, but it seems like to me, if you weren't the first, you were certainly at the forefront of creating an sort of an indie feel. And most boutique hotels then were more sort of, as you, Anwar, you just talked about, in the luxury or upper upscale space, but you created sort of this boutique feel, indie feel of a hotel or hospitality concept that was not luxury, not upper upscale, sort of a more upscale but hostile, sort of approachable, but didn't kill your wallet. That I thought was quite new. I may be wrong. Maybe I missed something, but I thought that was something that was quite groundbreaking for that period of time.
Well, I mean, look, I'll take that point. I mean, I think, as Anwar said, there were several independent operators around the world who had already sort of, happened upon that approach. So, I can probably name from memory back in 2007. I mean, having traveled and, stayed in probably, I'd say probably around 50 hostels in 25 countries in, the late 90s, 2000s, and then in 2006 when I was doing market research. There were back then tons of independent, really interesting, localized hostels in these various countries. But it usually was from the genesis of what I call like the heroic entrepreneur. It'd be a local person or husband and wife team or two brothers, or in the case of Independiente in Portugal and Lisbon, I think it's four brothers? Is it four brothers there? Or three brothers?
That's right.
But do this like heroic, really like incredible, amazing one-off hostel. But no one had ever done it at scale. So, again, Ian Schrager, by the way, was not the first person to do a boutique hotel. There were tons of boutique hotels before Ian ever came on the scene. He was the first person to actually say, I'm going to have a boutique hotel feel, but at a formula that is actually going to scale, and I'm going to recreate the success in each of these different markets. And obviously, from his first hotel in the mid to late 80s until he took Morgan's, or right before he took Morgan's public, he was able to do, I think it was like 9 or 10 hotels in, 5 or 6 big, huge markets. That's sort of what we did. And what we never lost, and even when we got to the last one, when the company was going up for sale and we sort of knew it was like the end of the road for that period of Generator, we never lost our dedication to the moment and the feeling of what that 18-year-old or 28-year-old or 58-year-old would feel when they walked into the lobby. And I did get that from Ian. I mean, I'll never forget walking into the Delano in 1996 when it really first opened. I was a 22-year-old kid, my first time I'd ever been in a really cool hotel. And I just got butterflies in my stomach. I had no clue who Ian Schrager was. I didn't know who Philippe Stark was. I had no clue about any of that. All I knew and remember the visceral emotional power of the design and the feel and the smell and the noise and the sound that was coming from that lobby. And that again, you don't have to be educated to feel. It's emotional. It's like when you hear a great song, you may not know who the musician is. You hear a beat, right? And that beat starts to play, and it's a very vibrational, emotional thing. And I think you can recreate that in a very well designed space. And so with Generator, we never lost that passion. Everything that we did was to really turn on the senses and start to then, once the senses are stimulated, then you start to layer. So you have the hardware and the software, right? The hardware is the physical box and the design, and then the software is the people, the music, the programming, all these things that now are pretty ubiquitous around the hotel industry or the private members club industry. People weren't really doing it on a consistent basis 10 years ago. And so, there are people on my team at Generator that I'm super proud of that came up with things that have been copied all over the industry. Like this whole, we came up with this like Gen Talks, right? Now, that was 10 years ago we came up with that, which was, we were inspired by TEDx. And we said, hey, let's do Gen Talks for young kids. Let's just get a cool bartender from around the corner and have them come in and do a talk, or, a yoga instructor or whatever. Now, that we were doing that in 2009, right? And now that's been copied across the board by everyone else. But, it was really interesting to give a platform for these young, interesting, up and coming voices, which now today everyone's doing it. I mean, look, we're on Zoom talking now. But this concept of really bringing everyone together, through, ideally in person, was something that was really inspirational. And again, that was the software. It was the heart and soul of all these local communities within each city that Generator was operating in.
That's great. That's great. So I have a bunch of questions here from our listeners, which I'd like to get into. But before I do those, I just want to talk, because I don't want to lose the opportunity to talk for just a second about Neuehouse as well, obviously. And Neuehouse is a newer venture for you, Josh, and also for you, probably Anwar. But it's a very different feel. So either one of you, how did you feel comfortable in, Josh, how did you feel comfortable in going back to Anwar to partner on this? Because it's a very different feel. Anwar, how did you feel comfortable in doing something that maybe was different for you, or what you had done with Josh before? Either one, or maybe Anwar, why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there was a lot of successes with Generator, and there was a lot of learnings. And what Josh touched on before is something that we've sort of embodied over 20 years of working with our clients. Like you have to really get along. You have to really like your clients. It's a real relationship. We always say we're only as good as our clients. So, that underlying feeling and relationship with Josh, I mean, has everything to do with it. And we have that with a lot of our other clients. And I think that's the most important thing. So when Neuehouse came about for Josh, and we got the phone call that this was live, this was happening, there was we had known the brand for a while. But then when, Josh really dug into it, and when we started to see the opportunity of something that we could add value to, I'm not going to lie, it was a daunting and scary thought to kind of, now go into, probably, if not the most elevated private, shared workspace cultural hub. They had a great track record, a great brand in New York and then in LA, incredible interior design with David Rockwell, being part of the whole founding story of the brand. So I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was very intimidating. But it was also, we know Josh, and we knew that he was going to unlock all this value and bring, great ideas and great opportunities to the brand. So we were just like, all right, let's do this. This is going to be amazing. We can take our learnings from, because again, we design other boutique hotels and office spaces and restaurants, and from Four Seasons to boutique stuff to Accor or Hyatt. I mean, you name it. We're working with a lot of different brands. But when you become a design partner with somebody, it's a really nice journey, because you're in at the beginning and you can really sit down with a creative team. And Josh has a great creative team, and he would lead a lot of workshops and great sort of exploratory, charrettes where we would try and figure out sort of the future of work. And again, now, relative to what's going on in the world right now, it's never been more important for these kinds of conversations and collaborations. So, it was daunting, but I think we were up for the challenge, and we've got some incredible pipeline. And the Neuehouse Bradbury that we did, that, soft opened, beginning of this year, we're super proud of. And I think Josh and his team are going to have a huge success with that, and also the rest of the pipeline that they have planned.
That's great. Josh, you want to add anything on Neuehouse there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of again, there's life lessons from Generator or Neuehouse that if you just extrapolate it out to anything that you do, you can always make parallels. And with Neuehouse, again, it was focused on this very sort of big wow moments of the design, but also making people feel provoked and inspired and confident and passionate. And so whether you're working in a luxury hospitality space or a luxury private member space, or a high design budget space like Generator, at the end of the day, people still, whether you're a big CEO of a company working in Neuehouse, and I mean, we have some incredibly world-renowned CEOs and leaders and companies working out of Neuehouse. We have members who are either freelancers or just members for social reasons, who again, are extremely accomplished in their fields. But you know what? They, at the end of the day, they are just the same as that 18-year-old kid walking in a Generator, in the sense that they want to be inspired, and maybe a Generator was 20 euros a night, and at Neuehouse, it's $2,000 a month for a private desk in our new penthouse suite in New York, which we launched with Anwar and his team, called Neuehouse 11. Or in Bradbury and Hollywood, it's anywhere from $600 a month and up. But human beings still have a very similar emotive landscape, which is, I want to be inspired, especially if you're working in a building every day, or you're socializing 2 or 3 days a week. It has to be inspirational. And that type of ethos that Neuehouse originally had, we wanted to continue that story. I think any brand is oftentimes like a book, that there's going to be different chapters in that book. And just like with Generator, it's on to a new chapter under different owners and management. Neuehouse is probably, I would argue, in its 3rd chapter. It was founded by 2 very visionary individuals, and they've passed the baton on. And I think the future of the company is extremely bright in terms of what we're trying to do. And we always start with the sense of, what can we do to really just bring some really interesting, innovative moments to the building and to the members' experience. And if you start from that, then some really beautiful things happen. I mean, Bradbury, for those of you who've seen photos of it, or if you have the chance to visit it, if you're in LA, by all means, please get in touch with me. I mean, you just sort of have to see this building to believe it. It's you might see a little more often in Europe, some of the legacy architecture, but this is probably, I think, one of the top sort of 10 buildings in the United States in terms of the design and what it's been able to, sort of the longevity of the building, which in the United States, a building that's 125 years old, actually older, is pretty rare. And this is truly a special building.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, let's get into some of these questions that people are asking, because I think that they're quite interesting. I'm going to start at the most recent one here. So from an investment deal sourcing perspective, how did you identify, secure the opportunity for the initial platform?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll take Generator and Neuehouse. I'll do Generator quickly. I mean, Generator, was really built sort of internally through the private equity fund that I was working for at the time, and my boss and the LP investors had the confidence, which took many years to earn, I would argue, or I would say, or point out, to back the team and really go for it. But I think Generator would have never existed were it not, and that's why I want to bring this up for everyone that's listening, because I do think everyone on this on this call should really take stock and look at themselves in the mirror right now, because this is the same moment for all of you that I had 12 years ago, and frankly I never thought it would happen again, and it's happening. But in 2008, when all this happened, and the Great Recession started, I just remember thinking, I'm like, wow, like this is a crazy, interesting opportunity despite the massive destruction in the marketplace. And Generator probably still would have done okay, but I don't think it would have gained as much popularity or power as it did in the investment community if it were not for those sort of 5 years between 2008 and 2013, when there was some pretty severe financial distress. That opened up a lot of investment opportunity and deal sourcing, because there were very few well-capitalized players at all in the real estate industry, let alone in the hospitality business, let alone in a fringe alternative asset class, which at the time Generator was. Neuehouse, I found that deal really through a stroke of luck. And my only, I guess, learning point there would be you had to be prepared to pivot. I was working with design agency at the time, a couple of years ago, to develop a new hospitality platform, almost like a Generator 2.0. And I happened across the Neuehouse opportunity when I was out there in the markets, and got to know some of the shareholders, and saw the perspective that Neuehouse, under the right management structure and guidance, really truly had the same dynamics as Generator. It really can go into many different types of buildings. It has a huge global growth opportunity, but at the same time, it really was in its first it still is in its first, second or third steps. And it really, it was small. I mean, at the end of the day, Neuehouse, Generator, all these things, they started out very, very small. And I like to grow things. I don't know if I'll ever run $1 billion company, but I was pretty proud of growing Generator to $500 million company, and Neuehouse, I think, has that same growth trajectory. So I'll close with this. I give this advice to any deal person: no matter what you do, just be in the flow and be in the scenario where a lot of things are happening. And right now, I can't imagine a better time. I mean, this is horrible what's happening to all of us, and I don't want to be insensitive in any way. But I want to be clear that this is a once in a maybe 100-year opportunity where there's going to be massive value dislocation, and everyone on this call sort of has an opportunity and frankly an obligation to figure out how to go out and fix some of these companies, or start companies that will create jobs and will create value creation for people, because people are going to need jobs. I mean, the unemployment that the world is facing today and in the next 2 or 3 years is going to be daunting. So any of you out there that has the opportunity to create even one job or 100 jobs or 1,000 jobs should be thinking that way. And if you can do that by finding a company, founding a company, rescuing a company, by all means, you absolutely should be doing that, or partnering with someone to do that, right? I think that's, we all have this obligation, I think, going forward to really pull that off.
I like the message, Josh. Take all those lemons and turn them into lemonade. So that's what we're going to do. That's awesome. Okay, Anwar, on to you. Question. When do you recommend independent hoteliers or hosteliers, if you're doing hostels, move from bespoke design to the creation of a design model and motif that can be scaled across a platform rapidly while controlling costs, like Generator did? Which sacrifices or shortcuts should be avoided when a brand is beginning to scale?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you definitely you have to test and prove. I think, you have to test and prove the design. And these projects too are not just all about design, right? We have to, when Josh mentioned hardware, software, it's one of the components of the success, but it starts with so many other things too, from branding to people to I mean, with Generator, we would really evaluate buildings all over the world, and a lot of it was about timing. It was about staying on trend and understanding what was up and coming. I mean, there's so many factors that when you build a brand or when you build a platform, that kind of factor into it being a success. So, but on the design, I think that typically the way we do it on the design side, you have to test things. You have to be not afraid to try things out. I think you need to push the limits with design. A lot of it is centered around ergonomics and functionality, and really understanding how the end user wants to interact with the concept or with the brand. So we focus on that a lot. Once you've established sort of your key differentiators, in some cases, a lot of hotels use, there's always brand standards. They have sort of their moniker or their symbolic 3 or 4 moves that they do that, everybody talks about. How are people going to walk into a hotel and understand like, oh, I'm at this brand or I'm at that brand. I mean, the hotels have been trying to do that forever, really. And I think that is an important part of it. But the real challenge is how to not lose that authenticity and that sincerity when it comes to the design. It is really challenging to not just become cookie cutter when you try and roll it out. So I think following a design process, there is a little bit of a joke in the industry when we say, there's a checklist now for boutique hotels. You just, you kind of do this, you do that, you get your local artist, you put the coffee shop in the lobby. Like a lot of this has been kind of done over and over again. So I think, testing out the design and the concept is important. And then when you have something that you can really hang your hat on, it's not just about replicating it. I think as you roll it out, you should be working with designers and architects the whole way through. But you can build standards. A lot of what we do, and we've done this for Neuehouse, is we build sort of brand design decks that become sort of the Bible that other people can follow when you're going to different markets and when you're working with different designers. A lot of projects we might do the first couple locations, but then we do a brand design deck, and then you can give that to the other creative people that will be involved, other interior designers or whatnot, moving forward. So there are ways to scale and be conscious, I think, of the budget as you expand a brand, but you have to be careful because you can lose that authenticity.
Very cool. Thank you, Anwar. That's great. Josh, going back to you, and I think this is more, I would say, focused on Neuehouse, but maybe you want to talk about it from a Generator point of view as well. But how did you approach investors to back your initiative? How did you get your foot in the door? I think that's a great question for those who don't have as much experience.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think the answer to this question 6 weeks ago is totally different to today. I think in the post-COVID world, it's going to be really challenging to raise big dollars. And so my advice to people would be to try to start small. I think we need to go back to thinking about brands and companies and investment opportunities in a 10-year run versus like a 2 or 3 year run or a 5-year run. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. So that's the way but 50 years ago, there was no concept of like a 5-year business plan to underwrite with like a levered model and cash on cash. It literally, it didn't work that way. It was just like old school. You put $1 in, and at what point do I get my dollar back out again? And then from there, what do I earn? And I do think this, I keep calling it like the great pause, which I read somewhere else. So it's not my idea, but I'm, plagiarizing this phrase. This great pause gives us time to really think about how the world should be run, how society should be run. and how business should be run. And I think this private equity or this like 5-year, really aggressive approach, I think is out the window. I don't think no one knows what the hell is going to happen for the next 3 years. It'll take a year to get through this, and then there'll be a year to 2 years of emotions and psychology behind how consumers book a hotel, how they book a restaurant, how they book or join a private members club or co-working. So it's going to take 3 years to probably stumble through this, and there's going to be a lot of false starts. And so I would argue or suggest that for anyone that's thinking about trying to get their foot in the door, start small. Like, go find one property and make great. The way we thought it would take 2 years, now it's 5 years. But that's okay. That's the way it used to be. You look at some great hoteliers, Ian Schrager. Everyone thinks that he's always been so super successful. Ian was what is he? He's probably almost 78 today. So 30 years ago, in 1988, he had his first hotel. It took him literally 20 years to get to a point where he got to, I think, his 8th hotel with Morgan's, and then he lost that, and then he started over with Edition. And by the way, with Edition, it took him 6 years to get the first true Edition open, right? Public Hotel, which he launched, he had a false start. He launched it, I think, in 2011. He got the first one open in 2014, lost that, and he got his next one open in New York, and he only has one open in 10 years. So that's okay, by the way. That's not criticism. That's just reality. That's how business goes. Some of the greatest restaurateurs, it took them 10 years to get their first restaurant really up and running. We just partnered with Casa Tua in Miami. It's an incredible, beautiful, amazing restaurant. Guess what? It was literally started in 2002. So it's been around for 18 years, and he's just now figuring out, he's started to expand, but it took him 10, 15 years to get to that point of expansion. So my advice to anyone is, this growth at all cost model, which has certainly served people well and has made people a crap ton of money. I think those days are probably numbered, and I think we need to think a little bit smaller, and that's not a bad thing.
Very cool. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Okay. Back to you with another question, Anwar. How did you approach the role of the bar in your concepts for these properties? Both from Generator and Neuehouse, because Neuehouse has them as well. What were the key design points? Did you seek something new, or relied on the tried and true?
That's an interesting question. I mean, you said the bar, right?
Correct. That's what this question is. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, bars and alcohol sales and music and having a good time is definitely, the heartbeat of many projects and many assets and many concepts. And so, I mean, just thinking about all the Generator projects, hotels that we designed with bars, currently Neuehouses, where we've, Josh and I have really tried to ramp up the hospitality side of Neuehouse as well. It definitely becomes the heart of the design and the heart of the space. Everyone is unique and different. So, I think space plan, I think it all starts with layout and space planning. We spend a lot of time really understanding, again, the flow of people through spaces, that whole journey. So by analyzing, one building compared to another, I mean, in Paris in Generator, we had essentially like 3 different bars, and which included a nightclub in the basement. And then some of our more boutique projects, like our jewel box in Venice that we did with Generator, the bar was the reception. And there, so there's a lot of really creative ways to approach the bar from a design point of view. But I think it's really, there's not one way to answer it, because, there's so many unique opportunities. You got to really focus on it. Traditional methods of approaching the design for a bar, I mean, what does that even mean? Like, traditionally, does it serve alcohol? Yes. Like, does it have the equipment that's required to run the bar? Yes. I mean, that's to me traditional. But how you approach it in terms of design, placement, concept, music, seating, that all has to be identified for each project. And I think, what we're thinking about now, the most about is what is this going to be like in the future? So, thinking about restaurants, thinking about bars, thinking about a large number of people in a small area ordering drinks. We talk, 4 or 5 people deep from the bar waiting to get a drink order in. And, are people going to go back to that? We design a lot of private dining rooms where especially with David Chang and Momofuku, like, he loves doing private dining rooms, and we love doing like these really cool hidden kind of bespoke experiences that, have bar services or bar carts or private bars and rooms. And, so I think there's going to be a real reinvention and shift towards design ideas for the bar, but it's definitely the hub of many projects.
Very cool. Very cool.
I just had an idea while we were talking about that with like the post-COVID situation is,
okay.
What if we designed a bar with like the church confessionals, where you had a confessional separation as a pod, as a booth, 12 confessionals around in a horseshoe bar, and you could like see someone on the other confessional from around the bar, but you'd be totally socially distanced in your confessional pod drinking.
Yes, and
I think you just came onto something. This is huge.
Josh, are we allowed to enter the confessional if we're Jewish? Is that okay?
It's non-denominational. Non-denominational.
Okay.
No,
I just want to check.
You don't have to feel, there's no guilt associated. It's just purely from a social distancing, and then you can have like a little door, and if you have like your positive antibody test, you can slide it through, and then you can come to your confessional to talk to someone. Oh, it's brilliant.
All right.
This is it.
I like that.
All right.
All right.
It's like better than the Larry David Spite store. So
it is better. All right. Well, somebody may steal that from you now. You put it out in the public, so it's.
I know. Hey, whoever's listening, don't steal that. It's a great idea.
All right. Okay. Just because we are somewhat limited on time, I apologize to everybody. I don't want to go too long, although it seems like not many people are signing off. But I'm just going to go for one last question here, so we can sort of stay at a reasonable amount of time. And this is sort of for both of you, I think. But what sort of research did you conduct while developing your programming and brand? And this is for both Generator and Neuehouse, and from both the owner's perspective and the designer's perspective. And did you speak to owner-operators, other owner-operators? Did you conduct your own panel research or any other way of doing research on when you were working on either of these brands? Anwar, or you go ahead, Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question more from like the strategic / I guess, I don't know, CEO perspective or whatever you want to call it. But again, sort of piece of career advice. If you're operating within a small company, or you are in a small team, or you're working at one property, or you're starting up a company, you should definitely never ever run a research panel or do like statistical analysis, or asking wide and far what you think should happen. I think that's the domain of like Procter and Gamble, or big huge publicly traded companies, big management teams. You got a bunch of different stakeholders. The surest route to mediocrity is doing things through a panel or some type of sampling. At Generator and Neuehouse, we do take advice or opinions from people we trust and we think are sort of leaders or vanguards in their space. But my whole strategy for both brands has been find really amazing, talented people who are super passionate about programming, brand. And in the case of Neuehouse, where it's more luxury and the stakes are a little bit higher, obviously we have deeply experienced professionals who have anywhere from 5 to 20 years experience. And Generator was a slightly different ball game. The customer expectation was a little bit lower because of the price point, but in either scenario, I just found amazing people and I gave them super big leeway. I put a little bit of guardrails on them, more from just a legal and financial perspective, but I just let them go. I mean, we had amazing teams in both companies. We have an amazing team in Neuehouse, and I let them go do what they think is best, not what the investors and the board is saying, but simply 100 people, you got to run with. I think the greatest inventions in the last 50 years has been with 1 or 2 or 3 people getting into a room saying, "Hey, let's go do this crazy idea," right? And we've been fortunate enough to have those types of people in both companies. So I think you got to trust your gut, and you have to trust your partners or your collaborators, and you got to give them a lot of leeway. And from there, I think that the best brands have been built. I mean, I'll just look at the hotel industry. I mean, Ace Hotel was not built from 20 different people. It was House Collarwood and then Pat Wilson joining them, and that's and Kelly as well. Those 3 really built that brand, and it's amazing. And they don't go around asking 100 different people, what to do. So I have a pretty strong opinion on that, which probably wouldn't play
That's
well,
great.
like if I was reporting up to the board of Hilton or Marriott. But I think in a smaller entrepreneurial company, it plays well.
No, I like it. And one of the things, so I can assume from your comments that Anwar did not have an unlimited budget then.
No, it's not a budget issue. It's look, you don't have to do great content, or great moments with it. It's not about money. It really isn't. I mean, you have to have some budget, but you'll find when people trust you and you're genuinely trying to help them as well, because life is not all about money. Like it could be someone's up and coming and needs to be promoted. So you're going to give them bandwidth on your social channel, or you're going to promote them through your relationships. There's different moments in different careers and different times. And if you just genuinely come from a perspective of wanting to build something great and help people along the way and create great careers or whatever it is for people, you'll find that more often than not, you'll get great things out of them.
Cool. Anwar, let's just go to you so you can
Sure.
chime in on this a little bit about the research that you conduct when developing a brand.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, from my experience, at least over the past 20 years of doing this, like Josh touched on it, like there's different types of clients, brands, scenarios where you're either doing research or not doing research. Like even, for example, when we worked with, for example, Nick Jones at Soho House, like there's some people that their brand is very much who they are. It's their vision. They put a box around it. They really want to create something that they know what it is, and they're really great inspirational leaders. And in those scenarios, there's some research that's done, but it kind of follows a very tight narrative, and it's very inspired by an idea or a person. And in those scenarios, it's not so much about research. You have to stay on top of trends, obviously. That's the most important thing, and kind of be ahead of the curve. And you end up being actually the trend leader yourself. When it comes to like the generator work, or, last year we worked with Hilton. We helped them launch Motto. We created a new brand, micro hotel brand for them. Those types of opportunities, you have to do a ton of research, and you have to have, I think, your finger on the pulse of everything that's happening globally. You have to travel a lot. I mean, Generator, Josh touched on this earlier too. I mean, we must have went to over 50 different countries and independent hostels to see what they were doing and to meet people. So travel and meeting people and surrounding yourself with the right influencers and the movers and shakers. And we did a deep dive into every neighborhood and every city that we worked in, and that was all research. I mean, sure, we had the numbers and the analytics, and we would look at that and look for trends, but it was more about the intangible, touchy-feely things that you could find from just being feet to the ground and pounding the pavement, walking around. I mean, that to me, that's research when it comes to design, and also collaborating with locals is paramount, because you learn, you can quickly be brought up to speed on what a brand needs to be if you just talk to people who are in the demographic or in the area that you're trying to attract. Like it's, because a lot of times these design process, I mean, you have very limited time to get up to speed. And we get asked this question all the time, right? Because it's like, do I hire a designer that's local? Like, can I only be authentic if I'm doing a hotel in this city? Does the designer have to be in that city? And there's pros and cons to both. You're gonna get something both ways, right? So you know, a fresh perspective, somebody doing research, you know, from across the planet, and what they see and what they learn is going to be very different from hiring a designer that's maybe been, you know, in that neighborhood for 20, 30 years, and not one is better necessarily than the other. But I think it's a really interesting design journey and a brand journey to see how that happens. So for me, the research part of it is very personal. It's very involved, and you know, it's not just about the analytics. You got to really you got to look for it. There's hidden clues all around that are more important, I think, when it comes to research.
Nice, great, thank you. That's fantastic. All right, gentlemen, I think we're gonna call it a day for the moment. We're almost at an hour, and we planned to only talk for 30 minutes, but there were some really great questions, and I wanted to take as many of them as possible. Both Anwar and Josh, I want to thank you both for participating. Thank you for supporting the Indie Congress. For all of the folks who are on the call, obviously our schedule's up online on all social media channels and everywhere else. If you need anything, just reach out and ask. Love for you to continue joining us. Thanks again, everybody, especially Anwar and Josh, and keep the faith and keep positive, and meeting up in person, I think, relatively shortly. So looking forward to it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And great to see some, I was scrolling through some of the names and seeing some old familiar faces. So thanks for the great questions. And Montauk to Frenchie, enjoyed being a fourth guest.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.